A number of folks here have asked some variation of this question. Suggestions for keeping up your morale during the process, especially, and I'll lead, I didn't pass all my exams. I failed one of them along the way. So especially, if you fail one of your exams, what are some suggestions for keeping up your morale during the process? Jonathan, I'll start with you.
Well, one, acknowledging the fact that it's okay to fail. Don't beat yourself up because nothing in the world, it's not like you can't take it again. You may have to pay for it again, but it's not the end of the world. Just keep going. But also, too, just think of the fantastic feeling that you'll have when it's over and done. You have that chunk of your life back, because it does take an emotional toll on you. And giving yourself a mental break if you do need it. If you do need to take a week off between, studying for your exams, between them, that's fine. Give yourself that time. But also, too, make sure you find people in your life to keep you accountable and to give you that emotional support. And luckily, I had friends and coworkers to do that.
Yeah, I think that's an important one. Those friends and coworkers to kind of keep supporting you along the way. That's really good. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, I think having a support network is really important, even if it's when you're getting done, obviously not divulging too much information about what you saw on the test, but just having somebody to vent about the process, because nobody likes taking those tests. They're always miserable. So just having somebody to vent to is important, and just kind of having fun with it. You're learning a lot about a career that obviously we're all very passionate about. So just, take it for what it is, just a learning experience. And I think it's less painful that way.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I like that a lot. Okay, Debbie, how about you?
I did like studying for the tests because it was information that I was learning. I hated taking the tests. It was every time I was convinced I had failed when I went out. I always had to have the attitude that if I did fail, then I'll know what I'm getting into better next time. So I should be able to take it on better. So I kind of just looked at it that way. Like the learning new stuff, I have no problem with that. That's fun. It's hard to make the time, but it was fun to refresh and learn new stuff. And then I just always told myself, okay, if you failed, you'll know better next time what material you should have studied and what to take on.
Yeah, I think, and this is one thing that, Mike Newman and I talk about a lot on these podcasts is don't forget that actually one of the best ways to study for the exam is to just take it. In fact, he often tells this story when he does these workshops and he has 100 people in a room, he says, if you guys were all MBA students, half of you would just go take all the exams without studying at all, knowing that just based on statistics, you'd probably pass 2 or 3 of them and then could just focus on the remaining ones. Some folks might think that's reckless, but on the flip side, it is a great way to study because you really do kind of get a sense of what it's like and things along those lines. Okay. Any other thoughts anyone has on this one? All right. We have a huge list of questions, but I think we've gotten through most of them, actually. Let me look here real quick. I guess this is kind of an interesting one from Allison. She asks, what would you do differently as a part of your test-taking process? Or maybe after you failed one of the exams, what did you figure out that you needed to do differently? So Jake, maybe I'll ask you that question.
Yeah, so I actually failed my first test, and I felt miserable, and I think I didn't include this in my just over a year, but I think I took like 4 months and was just depressed, not really, but a little bit. And I studied for that one. I took PPP, I studied for about 2 months, realizing that I only really studied for about a month, but that's when I adjusted my 4 to 6 weeks. Actually, I was probably more than 2 months on the first pass, but getting more resource material was critical in that change, and then the time frame as well, just making it more focused.
Okay. Jonathan?
Yeah. I guess what I would have done differently is to make sure that I went into the studying with a cohesive plan. And again, that takes time as well. Once you get the format down, it's fine. But actually, the whole thing about me breaking down my weeks of studying based upon the percentages of how the material was covered by the NCARB guidance, it took me about 3 exams to kind of figure that out. So just going in there with a very solid plan, and also too giving myself a bit more time, maybe for my first exam, maybe another week and a half or so, to kind of regain a study method, I think would have been a lot more helpful, because being at school for several years, you kind of forget how to study. So giving yourself time to redevelop those skills, I would have given myself a bit more time if I could do it all over again.
Okay. And Debbie?
If I could do something differently, I may have started when my youngest was just a newborn and I was on maternity leave, because I feel like I definitely had more time then.
That's interesting. Okay. Tell me more about
But
that. What do you mean? When you're on maternity leave, you don't have any time. You have that baby, it's crying. You don't have any
well,
time. Give me a break.
when I had my first kid, I felt like I had absolutely no time when that one
Right.
was a baby. But
Right.
then by my third, I realized, oh, babies don't really take up so much time, because I've got
That's
2
awesome.
others that take up
That's
a
right.
lot more time than the baby did.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great
So
perspective. That's great
if I had a
perspective.
change of perspective and could look at it and realize that there was time, I would have done it then. But at that point, I thought I had to sit there and hold the baby all the time, which was wonderful, and I wouldn't really give that up. So I don't know what I would change.
That's awesome. And lastly here, I've gotten a couple questions about this. So Debbie, you're on the hot seat here about the transition to 5.0. You did it. You passed. Do you recommend making the jump to 5.0? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I really like the 5.0 tests better. I felt like they grouped the material into more of a realistic way that we work. I liked all of the new testing types of questions.
Mhm.
The case studies are very real to what we do. The point and click, it just works from my brain well, in a way that added to the test, like the 4.0 being all multiple choice, and then the vignettes. I just didn't think that the vignettes tested what we actually do. They just seem like some strange foreign thing where you have to understand the software more than testing your knowledge of what you're doing on most of them. So I really liked the 5.0. I did not like waiting 3 or 4 months to get my results because I was one of the first few to take it. But now that you only have to wait a day or so, I would definitely recommend it.
Awesome. Well, Jared Zern would be very happy to hear you say that, and that we're sharing that feedback. That's really awesome to hear. I know they were, a lot of people I think were maybe a little intimidated by it, and so hearing your feedback I think is really great.
It was a little worrying since you couldn't take it back after you transitioned, but I was very happy that I did it.